Hey guys. So there was a conversation in a men's group this week regarding the Parsha, and certain things kind of came out of me in that conversation. Certain conversations draw out your thoughts and refine them. And one of the guys took time as a follow-up to thank me for some of the things I said, and he really found it helpful. And it's an issue I have pretty strong opinions on, and so I wanted to try to capture some of those thoughts while they're still fresh and share them. So this week's Parsha is Shoftim, which means judges, and it's from Deuteronomy, where the Lord's instructing the children of Israel when they go in to set up judges to help them discern, right and wrong, and any society needs a functioning justice system and people who can call balls and strikes, and I think in the Western world, especially in America, we can see how we've struggled to have a dependable justice system. I'll just leave it there. But there's the instructions for kings in Deuteronomy, I believe, chapter 17. And just want to point out, the roles in the Old Testament, the priest role, the king role, the prophet, they're separated. They're for our reference, and they're separated and very clearly delineated so that we can understand the responsibilities of each office. For those of us that believe in Yeshua, in Jesus, we are all kings and priests according to, he's our high priest, but in our own lives, in our own families, as men, we're called to function as a priest, a king, and a prophet. And I would put those all as functioning as a son of God. But it's important to understand the difference between the priest and the prophet and the king, which is one of the things that I'll be putting some online courses together later regarding the roles of a man as far as personhood, being a person, being a man, being a husband, being a father, being a king, being a priest, and a prophet. But there's specific instructions to kings this week, and it's pretty important. Something that quite a few years ago it got in my heart, and I've been practicing this. This has been something I've been doing for years that I'm going to share with you guys. And it talks about when a king comes into his realm of authority, for him to write with his own physical hand, to copy a copy of the Torah. And in Jewish tradition, the Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible, but it also refers, to the Bible itself. And Torah literally means instruction. That's what the word means, instruction. So a king will copy with his own hand the instruction, the Torah. And the blessings that accompany it are astronomical. The first thing it is to teach you the fear of the Lord, which is also when, I think a lot of people that are familiar even just a little bit with church, I think a lot of us who have been to church have heard a message about the tithe, about giving, and it usually accompanies something to the sort of, I wasn't tithing and things were tough, and then I started tithing, and then these blessings started happening, financial blessings. And but the blessings that accompany writing a copy of Torah far exceed the tithe, by far. First is to teach you the fear of the Lord. Second, it keeps your heart from being lifted above your brothers. So it keeps your heart from being prideful, thinking you're better than other people, or worse, or lower than other people for that matter, but it keeps your heart from pride. Keeps you from turning to the right or to the left. So it keeps you on the path of righteousness. It keeps you from, every road has 2 ditches. And a lot of times and to avoid one ditch, we end up in the one on the opposite side. You know, a lot of times you see this with parents, like, well, my parents were super strict, so I'm gonna be lenient. And then you see those parents raise their kids like super leniency, and there's no discipline. They went into the other ditch, and it's like there's two ditches on every road, and you don't want to overcorrect. So this also keeps you from turning to the right or to the left. So it keeps you on that narrow path of righteousness that's out of the ditches. It prolongs your years in your kingdom. So it keeps your kingdom from being cut short, you know, from your years being cutting short, or your realm of authority and your influence being cut short, so that you have a full measure of operating in authority in your home, in your domain, in your business, in your ministry, whatever it is what God's called you to. It prolongs your influence and your authority. Who doesn't want that, right? To you and your children, there's generational blessing attached with this as well. And I think it even says grandchildren, to you and your grandchildren, children's children. But, you know, one of my observations in our Western culture is most men don't know what to do, myself included. When I became a man, I became a father at 19. I didn't know what I'm doing. My mom raised me with faith, but I suddenly knew, like, I need to, like, know this Bible for myself. I started reading, started studying, but I didn't have a lot of role models, or the ones I did. As I got older, I started to see their flaws, you know. I think maybe I expected too much of them as well. Some of the pastors that I went to their churches for years and such, but I've never heard this preached from a church, to write your own copy of Torah. And it's always deeply frustrated me, because rarely can you go to a service and not hear a message about the tithe. But isn't it convenient? And I don't want to disparage, and like, I still think giving and being generous and honoring God with your possessions is a core spiritual principle. So I'm not trying to diminish that. I do have my own opinions about how to walk that out, but it's the thing of consciousness or conscience. And but isn't it interesting that the person that's telling you about the tithe to give, and then if you do this, you're going to be blessed, is also the person that's standing in the position to receive those. You know, there's kind of like a conflict of interest there, where it's like, they're not just telling me this for my benefit, they're also telling me it for their own benefit. Because if I give money, they're the ones that get it. And then it's like, well, some of them are living lavish lifestyles that, you know, that's their career. They don't have another job that they're doing, or, you know, it's like they're just a professional pastor type, and then they're compelling me to give them money and I'll be blessed. And that's problematic. I'll just kind of leave it there. Obviously, I have strong opinions, but I don't want to overly disparage. I think there's wonderful pastors that are good stewards, and it's not about the money to them. But I do think that there's plenty that have abused that influence. But here's a spiritual discipline that actually exceeds the blessing that is accompanied by giving of money. It's a spiritual discipline. I have no benefit in telling you about it. It's not like, you know, do this, send me a check and you're going to be blessed. No, it's a spiritual discipline that you do in your own home. And as you do it, you open the doors, you open the opportunity for the Lord to bless you in your heart, from pride, from thinking that you're better than other people. And in your walk, keeps you from getting off into the ditch and making foolish decisions. It blesses you in your business, that your kingdom, your domain, you would be prolonged. You know, in your kingdom, you wouldn't be cut short. Untimely death or someone usurping your authority. And then it passes that blessing on to the generations after you. I would that every pastor would preach this instead of the tithe. You know, because if you're following the Torah, you're going to be wanting to do what's right and be obedient and participate in the blessings. But and the thing about this practice is, a lot of guys don't know where to start. A lot of men don't know how to be a priest in their home, don't know how to be a king in their home. And this teaches them both, because it teaches them the Torah as they write it, but it's instructions for a king. So as the king participates in this practice, he actually becomes a better king. So this helps you be a king and a priest in your home. This practice does. And it directly benefits you and your family. And it's simple, right? It's just open up the Bible and start in Genesis 1 and just start copying it word for word. And when I set my heart to just do this, have this be part of my life, part of my spiritual life for the rest of my life, there's no like homework. It's not like, oh, I got to finish this or I'm going to get an F, or I'm going to get it wrong. No, this is just time, me and the Lord. And so what I do is I bought a nice ornate book, because this could be an heirloom. This could pass to my children, my children's children, you know, handwritten copy of the Bible that great grandpa did, you know. And so I get an ornate one each for book of the Bible. I'm almost finished with Genesis, so I'm not like, you know, done with this. But it's just something that is part of my whole life. Like, I'm just going to do this the rest of my life, and I encourage you to do it too. Go find a nice ornate book, blank book that would, you know, fit the book of the Bible that you're going to start with. And then I do a little notebook that accompanies it. So as I'm writing, I'm copying down the words. If something arrests me, if something sparks my curiosity, I can stop and chase that down. I can go look at cross references. I can look at the word meaning. I can do all kinds of other things. And then I write down what God's saying to me. I note it. I date it, the session that I'm sitting. I write the part of the Bible that I copied that day, and then I write the highlights and any things that the Lord really shared with me in that session. And it's mine. And it's just time between me and Him. And I love it. It's part of my favorite. It's one of my favorite parts of my spiritual life. And it opens me up to great blessing, and it does the same for you. So I'll speak more on this in the future, but I just wanted to share the seed that this week, that instruction in Deuteronomy 17 about kings writing their own copy of Torah, a lot of people just read that and kind of pass right on. But for men in our culture, especially Western culture, who kind of struggle with spiritual leadership, who struggle with their role, and maybe have deferred to women to lead, or women to discern, or women to do things, this is a simple place to start, and you never have to graduate beyond it. You can just stay there. Just, you know, weekly, just take some time, do it on Saturday, on Shabbat, or do it on Sunday morning, or do it, you know, every day a little bit, whatever seems right to you. But I encourage you to start. And this is a place where you can start to occupy the spiritual headship in your life, in your family. And just do it for you. Do it between you and the Lord. And if you need encouragement, or you have questions or anything, email me, Gideon@PeaceWars. I'll definitely encourage you. But this is for everybody, because we're all called to be kings and priests in the Lord. So, just want to bless you with that and encourage you. So, Shabbat Shalom.